Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness, presented by the Yes Team Realtors and Yes Realty Partners, live across the Commonwealth, live across Central Virginia, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. If you can tell I'm excited, it's because there's two guys on this set, and I sincerely mean what I'm going to say, who I admire quite a bit. I've been in this town since 2000, first year at the University of Virginia, and after coming out of UVA and starting at the Daily Progress, I started seeing these guys' name everywhere. And while working in the newsroom at the Daily Progress, Neil Williamson and Sean Tubbs, their names were on the tips of the tongues of reporters in the newsroom. Now you cannot turn on NBC 29, CBS 19, our show, without having content that is the foundation for programming. And that is a testament to what these guys do. I sincerely mean what I just said right there. Let's go to the studio camera, please. We're going to pass the baton to the distinguished gentleman whose beautiful youngest daughter gets married tomorrow. I mean, so this guy right here really doing the community a favor, sitting in this chair when his daughter's getting married in T-minus. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's impressive. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. I put my foot down and said, "Look, it's Sean and Neil. We need to do this." And they were very impressed with that, actually. Yeah. No, look, what do I got to do? I got to show up, write checks, right? That's all I got to do. Show up, write checks, and somebody told me that I only have 8 minutes to do the daddy speech. And
well, you're going to go over that.
I shook my head and I said, okay. And the second comment was, I can't even say hello in 8 minutes.
No, you can't do anything in 8 minutes.
I can't do anything in 8 minutes, particularly at my age. It's taking a lot longer to do anything.
We don't need to go down that road.
We do not need to go down that road. But I'm excited. This is fun. We got all kinds of folks in the house. And, we got people from overseas, people from all over the country. So we're excited about it. And give a shout out to Moss Vineyard. We've got a fellow vintner in the room and restaurateur in the room on set, and the guys entrepreneur,
yeah.
And the folks at Moss Vineyard is just doing a freaking awesome job. Made a phone call. Hey, can we show up a little early to set up? And they're just great to work with. So, get out there and check Moss Vineyards out. Check Well Hung out also.
We'll give a shout out to our friend Matthew Gillikin, who's going to be watching this program. I always try to shout out Gillikin when it's a content piece a show that I know he would like. Why don't we stop talking and welcome Neil Williamson and Sean Tubbs?
So is that the beginning of me shutting up?
Well, no. I mean, normally we say to everybody, let's do an introduction.
Yeah,
but everybody knows that.
Yeah.
I don't know me.
You know him.
No,
all right, how about this? Who is Sean Tubbs?
There's actually several of us. There's a guy in England he's a data guy. There's a guy, there's an audiologist who's also Sean Tubbs. It's the weirdest thing when you Google your own name and see that you're not the only one.
So there's a lot of Sean Tubbs. Is there only one Neil Williamson?
I believe there's a sheriff in one of the southwestern counties that is named Neil Williamson. I'm certain there are more than one Neil Williamson, and I'm certain they're all much more astute than I am.
Oh, stop, Neil Williamson.
There's only one Neil Williamson.
There's only one Neil Williamson that I know. And I'm going to give him some props. Well Hung.
Oh, yeah.
Vineyards and the restaurant. Here's where I give Gordonsville another plug over here. Go try this man's restaurant.
Yeah.
Try this guy's restaurant, guys, in Gordonsville.
Yona and I went there for Valentine's Day. It was an excellent meal. We had I think it was a prime rib. It was outstanding. Nice wine pairing. It was beautiful.
And I always like to say I am the minority partner in that business. My business partner is much more in tune with the day-to-day, but I am very proud of what we've accomplished in Gordonsville and now in Roanoke.
Ooh, let's talk about Roanoke.
We opened up in March in Roanoke, in a space right across from Mass General Store, and it's a larger space, and it's going quite well.
How long have you been open?
Since March.
Cool. Expanding, huh? Little entrepreneurship here.
It is, what is it Jerry always says, ABC, right?
Always be closing. Always be closing.
Always be communicating, right? That's how I prefer to do it. But anyway,
let's get in the nitty gritty.
Yeah. So today's show is, to coin a phrase that Mr. Williams across the table has I have stolen actually is elections matter. So we want to talk a little bit about what just happened here at the primary, talk about a little bit about what's on the docket or what's on the ticket for their surrounding jurisdictions. And since this is a real estate show, kind of what everybody's crystal ball may be saying or may not be saying for real estate or housing. So I'm going to get out of the way. Maybe we've got whoever wants to start first. We'll start with Charlottesville.
Let's start with Sean Tubbs.
There you go.
Well, so we had the primary, which was how many? That seems like it was a week ago, but I guess it was only 3 days ago now.
Right.
And only 3 people were in the race. Juan Diego Wade got the most votes with, I think, about, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but 4,800 or so. Brian Pinkston, who ran in 2019, did not make the ballot that year. Got on this year in second. He raised the most money, just edging out Wade by about 1,000 or so, but only got about 3,200 votes. But the real surprise to me is Carl Brown got a lot more votes than I thought he was. And he only raised about $1,500. And that money does matter for these races. And I think if he had run his, and I'll pretend to be a pundit for a second. If he'd started earlier and had been campaigning and had organized a little bit earlier, he might have come in second. But of course, that's we look ahead now to 2023 for that. But we have a bigger race ahead of us in
How
the
close
fall.
was he, Sean?
I have the votes. You want them?
It was like 1,700 or so.
So Sean's always right here. Wade had 4,910. Pinkston 3,601, Brown 1,797.
Yeah, which is a pretty impressive showing. And I think what it shows, I think that there might be some hints about what the general election might be like, because we have, of course, the first independent was elected in 2017 in Nakiah Walker since 1948. I believe that person, whose name I've forgotten, did not win again in 52. The question is that will Nakiah Walker be able to get a second term? And I think that the votes from this last Tuesday indicate that's a possibility for lots of reasons.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
Well, you also have mathematical questions with regard to having a Democratic ticket. Remember, there are 2 seats that are up, and the Democratic ticket has 2 names on it, and there are 2 independents. You always get the math. There are folks that put forth single-shotting, because if you vote for your second best, they may win because they're everybody's second choice. So taking whether the independent vote will be split or whether there'll actually be an independent ticket, it will be interesting to watch and see how the race unfolds. I think one of the things that the mayor has is name recognition and has exceedingly good outreach via Facebook as well as in the community. That being said, I also believe that you have Brian Pinkston learned a lot from his loss, and I think that may be the case for Mr. Brown as well in the future. And
you think Carl would run again?
I think that depending on how the tea leaves go, I firmly believe that he would run again as a Democrat if the stars aligned properly for him, because he has a lot of energy, he has a lot of ideas, and I think I actually am sincerely appreciative of him running this time because competitive races make better elections.
Well said.
We'll talk about that when we get to Fluvanna County on how that isn't happening out there. But for those folks that aren't in the game like the 4 of us are all the time, define single shot. What does that actually mean?
So when you receive your ballot, you have the opportunity to vote for no more than 2 city councilors. In choosing who to vote for, if you single shot, you choose 1.
Yeah.
That's the only vote you get. That would mean that the other person doesn't get votes from your ballot, any of the other 3. I haven't seen that work in some localities. Sally Hudson is actually working diligently on a ranked choice voting, which is fascinating and really creates, for those pundits, mind-boggling math. You may have seen in the Republican unassembled convention, Kirk Cox running to be everybody's number 2. Right. He was the first one out. So it's interesting. Ranked choice voting is a real thing. and it has benefits, but it really does increase the mathematical permutations available to you.
Well said.
Well, that's what we were talking about on Tuesday. I was trying to explain, that with 4 candidates, the math can be a little skewy, and particularly if you have one candidate saying only vote once, it makes it even harder to...
Well, take it one step further. Look at Bill Clinton and running against George Bush. Why did Bill Clinton win?
Ooh.
Ross Perot.
Can I finish?
Oh, that's right.
Can I finish?
You can finish.
Hey, hi, Sean. How you doing over there?
No, I think he's completely right. That was the Ross Perot thing, and of course it was that year.
I got it.
Just to go back in time for that, remember he dropped out of the race. He was in the race, was doing really well, then dropped out, then got back in. History might be very different if he had stayed in the race the whole time.
Well, we were having that conversation offline, right? And not to name names, but if one of the 4 drops out, it changes the math equation. And I think that's the comment, that if Ross Perot wasn't in it, then it may have ended up at a different result.
Yeah. And also, just to go back for ranked choice for a second, we do have one example in Charlottesville of this happening. The 2011 Democratic primary, there was a ranked. It was actually one of the coolest days I think I've ever spent because it was a firehouse primary, and all day it was like people went to Burley Middle School and voted, and the counting there went until midnight, and I believe Paul Beyer was the one that was edged out at the very end. And, they didn't do that again because, there was talk of maybe that wasn't exactly legitimate at the time. But it was a real interesting thing, and it's interesting now, 10 years later, to see that becoming mainstream. And who knows, maybe by 2023 it will change the equation. And, to anybody out there, this is the time. If you want to run, start now. Start thinking now about what you would want to run on. Because, of course, we have a lot of issues, and this general election is going to be, I think, one of the most heated, and competitive. But I think it's going to be a battle of some ideas. And I'll just, I don't want to necessarily go too deeply into this for now. But at the end of the statute discussion on Monday, Mayor Nakia Walker pivoted really quickly to the future land use map question and said these issues aren't unrelated. So I think the future land use map is on the ballot and the comprehensive plan is on the ballot in November.
And that's at the Charlottesville local level. How competitive the state races are will also impact the turnout in all of the localities. It'll be interesting because as I read the results, Governor Terry McAuliffe, former governor, won every locality in the primary. And that being said, he has a significant leg up, according to most pundits, if for no other reason than people know his name and generally put the word governor associated with it. I will also say that having met the governor twice, I found him to be one of the top 5 politicians I've ever met.
You said he remembered your name in a 5 or 10 second encounter.
He got my name in a 5 or 10 second encounter, and I had a friend with me whose mother's birthday it was, who's a huge Democrat, and he recorded a message on the phone to his mother, and I mean, and turned it on like you turn on the cameras, Jerry. He was on and on message, and did it all in about 5 minutes.
Well, can I throw this to Sean?
Sure.
You alluded to something that I hadn't thought of. If Pinkston and Wade are tag teaming, right? They're running as a tandem. Do you think Yaz and Nakia may do that as independents?
Possibly, but Nakia, I think, is she's an independent, I think, in lots of different ways. And I think that's a strength. I don't know if the two of those even know each other at this point, but I think that's going to be one of the things as these conversations start to begin. No. I am hoping we can take a couple months off, but of course we're not going to be able to.
Silly season just started.
But the next thing to look at is I think July 15th is the next deadline for campaign finance reports, and so far Walker has not said that she's raised any money, and the real question is that the last time around she did get a very healthy large check from
Sonia Smith.
Yes, I believe it was $100,000, and the question is, will that come again, or is their money tied up elsewhere? You might have seen, I think it was somewhere on the East Coast, I don't remember what jurisdiction, but they gave, I think she and her husband gave $500,000 to the Democrat who ultimately won, whose name I'm forgetting at this point, but unseated and incumbent. And so I think that's, there's a lot of unknowns, and I don't think it's probably fair to say too much about what's going to happen, but I do think this is going to be a very intense campaign.
So do you think they're going to team up, Yaz and Walker?
I do not think they're going to team up.
I would agree with that.
I think the reality is running as an independent, you cherish your independence.
Sure.
And that would not be a ticket, so to speak. I think there are areas of agreement between all the candidates, and there are areas of differences between all the candidates. The difference this time for Charlottesville is Sunday is the deadline for comments for the consultant-driven public engagement program at CVillePlansTogether.com.
Right.
There's a map, the future land use map. That map has a picture of everyone's house on it.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's house is a color. That makes this election very personal.
Oh, yeah. Look, I think if I believe in that Mayor Walker has said the single shot, that's the reason we had this whole conversation. So that kind of tells me I don't think she will team up with somebody else. I mean, that's just me reading the tea leaves, but you're spot on. If you have not had an opportunity to get on that website, it's pretty awesome. I mean, you can zoom in, and it is super detailed. So
that's the talk of the town.
Yeah.
That website.
Yeah, totally.
And the talk of the editorial page and the talk of the letters to the editor.
Yeah, that totally is.
Well, it all started here, but that's pushing
There
it
you
back.
go, Keith Smith.
Comprehensive planning started with Real Talk.
There you go. There you
Yes.
go.
This is where we're like,
Okay, move on. Next
why
subject.
are you blushing, Keith? Why are you
It's the
blushing?
tan. It's the tan. It's the tan. So we're talking Charlottesville, right? Part of the second part of the tagline on this elections matters is how these potential elections may impact. We talked a little bit about land use, the land use map, future housing policy and housing in general. We're all having this conversation on a daily basis. Inventory shortage, should I buy, should I sell? Anything you guys want to jump in on that, on what you think it might look like?
The election? Well, I mean, I think right now, the one question I have, and I just published something yesterday, a list of real estate transactions from May, and, it's I think we talked about this last time. The market is hot, and it might be sun-like hot, because there's some purchases that seem like and I don't know necessarily, but are they purchases that are being made speculatively in the sense that, so one of the ideas in the future land use map, let's say, and let's separate this from the zoning, which is the more specific conversation, but at this level, is it enough for speculative investment to come in and start buying some of these properties, say on Cherry Avenue, which is designated as middle residential density, which in theory gives up to 8 to 12 units per lot. And there are some transactions of some teeny tiny houses that are selling for about $100,000 over the assessment. So the question is, this is why I'm hoping to continue to monitor this. What happens to those houses in the future? There's one on Dairy Road, and it's probably unlikely this is the case. So Dairy Road at the intersection, if you know that three-way stop where you can go 3 different directions, which all lead to the bypass eventually. That's also designated for that middle residential category. Someone paid $700,000 for that property, which, it's a very steep property. There's going to be challenges for all these properties, but maybe some of these investments are just not thinking through the topography. But I think I think that you guys would know better than this. How long is this going to last? Is this money from here? Is it outsiders moving here who want to get in on the single family while they have it? But this is unlike the market in 2008 when I bought my house. When I bought my house at the top of the market, and it plunged. But now the question is, do I sell? No. The answer is no.
Well,
I know a guy.
Everybody knows a guy.
Give me your business card.
He knows my number. And by the way, he'll call Yona, not me. So.
And if Ray Cadell is out there, yes, I know.
I bet Ray Cadell's watching. Hello, Ray Cadell.
But it's not time for me, and I think that's actually the question. I do have this concern, is that, this is just a general concern, is that does this push people like myself out of the market who I could get a great payday right now?
Yeah, but where would you go?
Exactly, and I'm not here.
But you've got to back up, because it comes to
I
property.
can't, I'll hit the wall.
That's true.
He'll hit the love sign.
Don't touch the love sign.
Love the singers.
No love for Sean. Speculative investor. I hate that term.
No.
Property owners are property owners, and property owners have rights. Those rights are being addressed through the future land use map and then eventually the zoning code. But the fact that you're speculative, that you're choosing to buy something rather than choosing to buy it and live in it, doesn't change your property rights. Whether you're from here or you're from somewhere else, whether you're from New York City or Williamsburg, it doesn't matter.
New York City, get a rope.
And Williamsburg. It's kind of the same, isn't it?
But the idea of it and keeping the idea of what we want this community to be and grow to, and the questions about density. We posted a piece yesterday regarding housing Albemarle and some challenges that this idea brings forward without providing any incentives at all. Right now, the way we've calculated it, if you were to put forth a 200 apartments, and then you have to do 20% affordable, which is 40, and you have to keep them affordable for 30 years, that's $5 million. That would increase the rent on the balance of the property, on the 140 apartments, by $1,000 a year. How is that helping overall affordability?
Well,
Are we moving to Albemarle, or are we? Because I
do whatever you want.
Well, I was going to say, if I was going to move to Albemarle, maybe I'd run for office. Hint, hint. No. But I only joke because we'll get to the elections in a second.
Are you talking Steve Harvey?
Well, no, I think that this is one big region, and I think that it's really difficult to look at just Charlottesville in a vacuum.
Well, we had this conversation on Tuesday, and Jerry asked me this very question. I just came from vacation. The question is, where are you from? I'm from Charlottesville. Well, really, I'm from Flavanna County. I don't say I'm from Flavanna County. I say I'm from Charlottesville because of the name recognition. The sign behind me and the sign behind these two gentlemen doesn't say I love Gordonsville. It says
Albemarle. I told people I was from Albemarle. They're like, is that in North Carolina?
Yeah.
That's literally what they said.
Because there's an Albemarle, North Carolina.
Well, I think they confuse it with Asheville. But then I say Charlottesville, they're like, the reaction is normally like, Charlottesville, Charlottesville's so great.
And then the second follow-up, UVA, and they go, then it clicks off.
But I think that looking at that, and just to your point, I think that some of the communities in our area want to have a different identity. Look at Nelson County. I think Nelson County in particular, and I think he's running uncontested, Jesse Rutherford.
He is.
In whatever, is that the Central District? Is he Central?
I thought it was North.
No, that's Tommy.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Harvey, and he has competition from a woman whose name I don't have in front of me. But Lovingston is a place to watch because there's a lot of. It's a little community that's sitting right there. I do think that in 10 years, people might be proud of parts of Zion Crossroads, for instance. This is Standardsville has that potential. Parts of Albemarle. The problem with Albemarle is that it doesn't really have a place except if you want to talk Crozet, but let's not talk Crozet right now because because that's a place where the county has invested, and if you listen to the meeting the other night, the people who are there now don't really want many more people there, which again, I would agree with Neil. They have property rights. They have the right to say that, but there's also some facts about the amount of money that has been spent, taxpayer money that's gone to Crozet. Which is to bring it all back to Albemarle for a second. We talked about the race in Charlottesville being competitive. There is not one single competitive race for the 3 magisterial districts in Albemarle. And, as a person who covers this stuff, last time it was 2. Well, sorry, 4 years ago it was 2. I don't remember what last, it was 2 last time, too, I think. So, there isn't really competitive races. So, Diantha McKeel, Ned Galloway, and Jim Andrews, who's a newcomer to politics, are all going to get through. So that means we won't have campaign forums. We won't find out how they're going to vote on these very important issues.
But we will, because I've had conversations with them, and we're going to have roundtables with here, and you gentlemen will be able to chime in on that. But Neil, this is an important subject to you. Why does competitive races matter? For those of us out there watching or listening, why is this important?
Well, competition is good. I don't know what's going to come in front of any board or council. I do want to know, how does this person think? I don't want to know what they're going to vote on, how they're going to vote. I don't want to prejudice. I want to understand what's the process. What are they thinking about? Are they looking at the sociological benefits or costs? Are they looking at the economic or environmental costs? Where are their priorities? Absent a competitive race, you don't really get down to that detail. And I will say that when we did the candidate forum we did for the Charlottesville Democrats, it was very interesting when we posed the question, do you support the 2-cent tax increase that's built into the budget today for the capital improvement plan? And we got 3 different answers.
Sure.
And so that's the kind of question that you don't get to ask in a non-competitive race.
But I do like the idea of these forums. I really hope that you do those, because if I do think that that they're important questions. This housing Albemarle plan that will go before the Board of Supervisors on Wednesday. But there's also things like the University of Virginia, relations with the University of Virginia. Nobody's electing those positions, but what are the relationships? And we've got a big regional housing need. And, I will put a plug out to the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership, which has a forum on June 17th on housing and equity.
Who's chairing that?
That's 23rd? No, it's 17th, right? Well, actually, let's go to Keith. Keith, when is that?
Yeah, I called the executive director.
Okay.
He gets text messages before he's told
I think it's
Sean,
next
really?
week. I think it's next week. I think it's the 17th because it's usually
Really?
on a Thursday.
He actually thinks I know this stuff.
But those are the questions, and I think that thinking regionally is not just a buzzword. I think that there's real action going to those things, and there's movement, because every single locality is figuring out where do we want to be in 10, 20, 30 years. And that's the comprehensive plan. And there are regional forums that very few people pay attention to, such as the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, where there's real talk and conversations. That's how I know that Jesse Rutherford is really ambitious about Nelson County. And that's going to change Nelson County. And of course, I'm really looking forward to the forums that you have for that jurisdiction and the others.
Well, my hope is that you two gentlemen will be chiming in feverishly on the feed, asking questions. It makes the host's job and the co-host's job a little easier.
Neil gives us answers to questions all the time, and we're grateful. Seriously.
Thank you. But let's go back to the regional. I actually have an executive. You've yelled at me for doing a show. I'm actually chairing an executive committee for the Regional Housing Partnership at 1 o'clock. I hope nobody from my family's watching. But thank you for saying that. I actually, for those who watched it a couple of meetings ago, asked about what's the benefit of the Regional Housing Partnership? What are we doing that's good? What are we doing that's well? And it's, COVID has really hurt us quite a bit because we haven't had it in person. It's hard to do that. But thank you for saying that, Sean, because sometimes I think I'm beating my head against the wall on this stuff.
Well, I will say that in the candidate forum, when the affordable housing issue came up, Juan Diego Wade had one of the more memorable quotes where he said, "Charlottesville isn't the only place with po people."
Yeah.
And I think there's lots of. You asked about a specific thing. There was actually at the Regional Transit Partnership the other week, Karen Davis, who's the interim director at Jaunt at the moment, actually said that the last forum that you had on transportation issues, UVA picked up the phone and called her. Yeah. Jaunt had a fixed route service called Park Connect, which didn't, I'm still not sure how much ridership they get total, but it didn't, I don't know if it went away because of COVID or whatever. But they called up and said, hey, let's talk about maybe trying to figure out a way to do this on an on-demand basis. So it's those ideas. I mean, I think that's really it, is that, it's a place, it's a forum to talk about the things that are really happening, because Louisa's growing. Zion Crossroads, Fluvanna the other night, there was a public hearing at the Planning Commission regarding making multifamily units by right if they're connected to water and sewer. Actually, it said central water supply, so that doesn't necessarily have to be public water. And at that conversation, they're talking about 20 years from now, because the University of Virginia is not going to shrink. Someone let slip at the Board of Visitors meeting last week that the School of Law is going to grow, Darden is going to grow. The undergraduate might stay about where it is, but there's a lot happening at the University of Virginia, and it is going to be an engine that drives us. And they know that, and I believe the university wants to do its part in trying to address some of the transportation issues. So that conversation about the transit. Now, that's going to take people willing to take those options. And of course, that's...
With the exception of the UVA employees, which are directed to do the park and ride.
Well, that's exactly it, because they have a transport, I'm always talking about transportation demand management plans, because they have one and they stick to it. I don't know if we want to talk about the parking garage. Please, let's not talk about the parking garage. But
The parking garage got Brian in trouble in your forum a little bit. Did you guys see that? With his comments of what he said?
I thought we said we weren't talking
No,
about
we're
it.
not going to talk about it. But
I was gonna
that's
say,
why his
yeah.
forum was important. Their forum was important.
Well, everything we do.
But I think that's just it, is there a plan for this? And sometimes I think, is the city's plan really taking advantage of what other plans are out there? Wait, 3, 2, 1. Neil is probably going to talk now about the 2011 comprehensive plan and the $1 million federal grant. See, I know him so well.
He does, because
That's where I'm going. I'm trying, this whole show, I'm thinking, what can I call you guys? What can I call you guys?
because we got a
Because
one.
it can't be Dumb and Dumber.
No. We got the Charlottesville and Albemarle went together and did their comprehensive plans together because, hey, we're one community.
Yeah.
This was under the auspices of the Thomas Jefferson
I know a little
Planning
bit about
District
this.
Commission prior to Chip Boyles. This was a fiasco.
No, this was a cluster, and you add the F at the end of
Yeah,
it.
that's yours. That was just so poorly done.
Yeah.
Money wasted right and left. And one community didn't come out of it. You ended up getting two lousy plans instead of one good plan. I think it's important to recognize we're now doing new work independently with separate consultants or doing it with their own staff on comprehensive planning and building institutional memory within the organizations of planning in Albemarle and Charlottesville right now.
And
Green is doing it as well.
You got a question about Green. Katie Pearl Keller-Williams. Not to get off topic, but would love to hear your guests chat about Greene County and some of its development opportunities, or just general thoughts on the county in general. And I responded to Katie by saying, Neil Williamson knows Greene County like the Pope knows holy water over here. So you're the perfect guy to talk to about Greene County.
I'm not the perfect guy to talk about Greene
You are
County,
the guy.
but I do know a great deal about it. I do live in Greene County,
Yeah.
and I have for a little while, since '99. But I think Greene County, you're seeing huge number of projects coming forward. There's a group of apartments that are across 29 from Lowe's that are almost ready for certificates of occupancy, but they're 6 months behind on the connector road. And they can't get those certificates of occupancy until the connector road is completed. The developer went to the board and said, hey, we got held up. It's not going to be that many people because it's only 3 of the buildings, not all of the buildings. And the Board of Supervisors said, you see this part of the condition where it says this has to be built first? Yeah. That's what that means. Yeah. And it was unanimous, although the Planning Commission was unanimous the other direction. So that opportunity is coming forward. There are several significant housing developments occurring just north of the Albemarle County line that are going to be interesting. Multifamily, there's a senior residential project. We have Brent Wilson covers Greene County for us as a field officer. If you go to freeenterpriseforum.org and search Greene County, you'll get all of his stories. And we cover the Planning Commission as well as the Board of Supervisors. The thing to know is demand is coming. Where is that?
No. Demand is here.
Demand is here and coming.
It's coming.
And where is that going to go? And we last night they were discussing at the Places 29 North meeting the RST proposal, which is in front of Forest Lakes for significant housing development. It is going to be interesting to see. You have neighbors who do not want density. You have a comp plan that calls for density.
I just got an email about this. Scott Elliff would like to know. Scott Elliff just let me know that the RST development issue is going to come up before the Planning Commission again next week on the 15th. He is wondering if you might be interested in a follow-up interview in advance.
Well,
that's literally what you're talking about, right?
That is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And Scott is very well versed in public policy and being an active citizen and a great guy.
Is he in the wine
industry? He is. Ducard Vineyards.
Right.
And a great guy. He really is. He and I disagree a lot about politics.
He's caught some heat
okay.
lately.
He has, but that's okay. There's Scott.
Part of the game.
It's part of the game.
Yeah,
Scott can take it, and he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
But Sean will want to talk about how the last presentation for RST went.
Well, it's it's interesting. I think we're at a point where we're going to move back to in-person meetings, and I think last time in March, the Forest Lakes Community Association, which used a lot of their homeowners association fees to hire a consultant to come in,
put on a PowerPoint.
They put together about a 90-minute PowerPoint. And they were well orchestrated.
Yes, they were.
And it was, Scott Elliff spoke 3 times, which is not technically supposed to happen. But of course, I would say, it's also, should these very high-profile rezonings happen virtually? Well, that's a moot point in some ways, because we're going to be back in those meeting rooms fairly soon. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday. It is the Planning Commission, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But now I'm going to confess, I sometimes record things and look at them later, so I did not listen to that. But I believe that's 2 times this week where these community advisory committees that are set up in order to kind of oversee development in specific areas of Albemarle. That's twice this week that community advisory committees had on their agenda how to oppose a development. And Neil is going to say
this at the 29 North meeting last night.
Stuff.
They presented one of the members presented a document, a 2-page document, laying out 3 positives for the RST proposal and 10 negatives, and all of the reasons that they should oppose it. And they wanted the group to endorse it. There was one member, there were only 6 members, I think, of the group there. There was one member that was adamantly opposed to endorsing it, but it doesn't mean that you don't lose your rights by being a part of that committee. Any member in that group can use those talking points and put it into a note to the Board of Supervisors and mention that they are serving on that group.
Sure.
But is it right for that group to endorse such a document? And I think Sean has an opinion about that.
Well, I think
I'm just working on wedding stuff, guys. That's all.
Once again, I don't necessarily
Let me know when it's time for me to talk.
You just report the news. It's not an opinion.
I have observations, and they always change. But I would say, let's pivot over back to the city comprehensive plan. So 11 of the neighborhood associations this week signed a letter asking for. Now, I would say that was probably ill-advised because the way the process is working, it's built in. The comprehensive plan is going to take this land use map. It's going to take at least another 6 months to be approved anyway. So the delay is in there. They already had a 2-week extension, but what it does is it makes the proponents of the plan more ammunition to say, look, it's just a bunch of NIMBYs. And I think when that happens, it collapses the argument into that, and it makes the conversation a lot less robust. And I would just say it's like, again, but
you're saying they created a PR issue.
Well,
what you're saying.
Well,
precisely,
I think it's a timing issue, too.
Because now other members of that neighborhood are saying, wait a second, we support this plan.
Yeah.
We didn't sign off on this. So it just was a bad move.
So it's kind of like what happened in Fluvanna County with the Board of Supervisors, right?
So it was just a bad move on their part because it was an unnecessary thing because the Planning Commission has a work session on June 29th.
Yeah.
The public hearing probably won't be until September or October. And then, of course, by that point, the election's going to get in shaped. And so what could be a conversation, parcel by parcel, about specific neighborhoods and with specific infrastructure? To go back for a second to Fry Spring, they had a great conversation with Chip Boyles the other day in which there was a very specific question about how do we fix this infrastructure issue that, we'll take the development, but are you going to provide us the sidewalks and a safe way out if you're going to put 300 people back in the woods?
So we're from a managing of a meetings perspective, really talking about here's a rezoning process. You always want to be the last person to speak.
Yeah.
But
always want to be the last person to speak.
As I said on the blog earlier this week, this is not the end.
Sure.
This is the end of the beginning.
That's exactly
The
right.
consultant's work is going to be effectively done on Sunday, and it's going to the Planning Commission. They're still going to be engaged.
On the comp plan. On the comp plan.
That's what I was about to say.
But that's, again, the end of the beginning.
Yeah.
The comp plan moves to the Planning Commission. The same consultant who did the affordable housing plan that was approved in March is working the comp plan with the Planning Commission and has been contracted to do the zoning that supports it. When the comp plan is enacted, nothing changes.
That's exactly right.
Well, I think, we could quibble about that. But another time, there was actually a recent
there's
ruling.
nothing to quibble about. It's technical. Nothing changes, right?
Well, it's a judicial interpretation. I mean, I think it really does get down to precedent at the local level. And from what I understand, I haven't read the ruling yet. We're going to go deep in the weeds on this one, but
Please do.
But Tiger Fuels, I have not seen it yet. But from what I understand from Gordon Sutton, because that's the only person I've been able to talk to about this, they lost their case. So the rezoning.
You're talking the Black Hat Road?
Yeah. So the denial of the special use permit, which meant they couldn't build a convenience store there, they lost the appeal that was underlying to that, which basically says, I think that gives a lot more power to a comprehensive plan. I think it's often said in the county, comprehensive plans are as good as you use them. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the more weight it has. But as Neil says, it is advisory, but it's also, lots of things are advisory. People tell me I was going to go for a joke, but I'm not going to go there.
Please do. I love the Sean.
No, it's like don't dive into the shallow end or whatever.
So I need a
dive
couple
into
of
that shallow end. It's advisory.
I need a couple of jokes for tomorrow's dad speech.
You don't need any more
Don't
jokes.
use any of these.
The reality is that your comprehensive plan is only as good as the way the landowner, the willing landowner, chooses to utilize it, and the neighbors accept it. Because we've seen again and again and again in Albemarle 3-3 votes for projects that meet the comprehensive plan density and fail to convert the neighborhoods to supporting them.
So this is coming in here. So is the Tiger Fuel project on Black Hat Road completely dead now?
They still have rights to build something there. So the question is, what gets built there?
As their requested rezoning, I believe it's
Yes, the market as it stands, because you need a special use permit. It's really labyrinthine and confusing, but yes, for the most part, that project is dead. But the ability to build something there, that parcel is the only parcel in that area that still retains commercial zoning.
So it could be like a convenience store. Maybe
not a
without the
convenience.
pumps.
It could be a Dollar General.
Or there's a lot of uses. You can go in the zoning code and none of those uses are proffered out. So it could be a lot of things.
Could it be just straight retail and no gas pumps?
It's a pretty small site, and also that parcel, I believe the zoning is split. So the actual commercial one is only about 2 acres up on the frontage. So you couldn't build, say, a self-storage area.
So we're getting in the weeds, gentlemen, big time on this. But the bottom line is, as their requested rezoning, it is they've basically tried their last ditch effort, and it got shot down by the judge.
And I have to say, I am incredibly appreciative of anyone who challenges such things in court, because that's the way the laws are tested.
Not everyone has those resources.
Well, I did ask him. I did ask Gordon. I said, "So you're going to appeal?" And they don't. It's like that would be another level. And at some point, it's. I'm not a developer. Probably never will be. But a lot of it is a gamble. Sometimes when, even the RST development, that's a gamble. People put money into these projects by hiring folks to do all of the work, and then they might not win. Biscuit Run is another one. I mean, it's filled. This community is filled with people who took big bets and they didn't pay off, and a lot of people who did. Oh, I don't know.
Been there, done that. Thank you very much.
But that's life, and I think that's part of it. And I think that's
sorry.
in a lot of ways.
Trying to jump in here.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead. Keith.
Shut up.
Trying to jump in.
No, Sean, you're doing a great job, dude.
So I've been doing this since 1987, right? And I can count on one hand when a judge has reversed a decision of what a board of supervisors have made.
What level of court is that?
It was circuit court.
Circuit court, okay. And then you can march it all the way up, right? You can go all the way to the state Supreme Court if you wish. Okay. But generally, the rule of thumb, a judge is going to kind of look at this. If they acted in good faith or they did not make any serious nefarious actions or decisions.
You're talking the board.
Yeah.
The board.
And how the law is written.
Correct.
If it is not arbitrary and capricious with regard to.
Let's just use the word vague.
Vague.
Right. And they 99.999%, I'm not a lawyer.
Freaking love this show.
99.9% of the time, they're written intently to be vague.
And it just to clarify though, the ruling was not on the boards. It was that lawsuit it was about a separate issue.
Got it.
So it wasn't technically about that ruling. It was more about staff's interpretation of something having to do with water
usage.
and all that stuff, which goes back to which again goes back to in Crozet, neighbors of the Restore. It's not even called that, Liberty Market.
But ultimately,
Legacy
Market.
Yeah.
ultimately that made it to the board and made it to the board's thinking and made it to the board's decisions or lack of decision.
And a different board might have decided differently.
That's
but when you
exactly.
have a situation where all of them run uncontested, voters don't have a choice. And I mean, this is a very specific issue, but on the idea is some of the big issues are going to be, and the biggest issue in Albemarle County over the next 20 years is going to be, does the designated growth area expand? Especially when you've had so many, I would say perceived, because I'm not giving an opinion, but like the other one we mentioned, Breezy Hill is another one where the developer came in and thought they could get up to 100 and it started out at whatever it was.
A certain neighborhood kiboshed that.
Yeah.
Well, they're now down to 80.
Here comes Neil with a joke. I knew it.
So they're now
I
down
set
to
that up
80
for you.
units, and of course, I believe those neighbors who are opposed to it also have rights to say and to organize and to do what they do, and they've been very successful.
And the question is, does Albemarle want their growth area to be 1 unit an acre? And if they do, how much growth can Albemarle accept? And
Which is limited with
Which
that
is limited,
spike.
but tying it back to elections,
Thank you.
we're just having a census coming through. 30 years ago, there was a decision made to draw the magisterial boundaries that every supervisor had a portion of the development area and somewhat equal portion of the rural area in terms of population. You can't do that anymore. Right now, if you are running, let's say you're running, I don't know, in Scottsville, and you win a neighborhood that's over on the east side, and you win the one that's right there by the food line. That's
Mill
it.
Creek.
Mill Creek.
Yeah.
You're done.
870 rooftops
You're done.
in that neighborhood.
You
on the
win.
east
The
side.
math works.
You win.
2 voters per rooftop.
You win.
If you happen to get really tight in that neighborhood, you got a pretty good shot.
Right. And so the question becomes one of, are we adequately representing the county utilizing this theory? I understand the theory, and I think the theory made sense probably for 20 years. Is it time to revisit that theory?
Well, we're under redistricting now.
Hopefully not before 2023.
We'll draw the line so that the Miller abode is cut.
Neil Williamson, I love
One vote, that's it. But it's funny, I had a conversation with a couple of, prepping for today, a few of the elected officials in all the 6 jurisdictions, and some counties that have a 3-3 board are seriously looking at redistricting to create a 7th to try to avoid this thing, and it's a conflicted opinion.
How does that happen?
It requires a fair amount of work. Flu Vanna actually went through this 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I know. I got redistricted out.
Yeah. I think they called it the Smith redistricting.
That literally exactly what happened to Miller happened to
Smith.
So what
Smith.
hasn't happened to Miller? So your neighborhood got cut in half?
Yeah, man, I'm inside of Lake Monticello, been inside of Lake Monticello since 1987.
And they chopped it in half.
And they just literally cut a subdivision I built and literally cut it out and shoved it into the Cunningham district. I've been voting at Lake Monticello for decades, and all of a sudden now I've got to travel.
And Greene did the same thing because of population, and they created the Midway district, which I like to call the pick and pack district, and also the Ruckersville district. And it used to all be Ruckersville, but it got too big to manage with one precinct. So either you add another precinct or you change representation. The math is really interesting. Some localities in Virginia elect a chairman.
That's right.
Fairfax County being the most prominent.
Okay.
Jack Harity was chairman 100 years ago, and his son was chairman just recently. But we have chosen a model where we elect a board, an even-numbered board in Albemarle, and they elect the chair.
That's exactly.
And but also to throw out, there was a conversation in Albemarle about 8-9 years ago about this, and they looked at it for one day and declined to go forward. But Albemarle has 7 members of the school board, 7 members of the planning commission, so there is an at-large district in those 2. And so, at some point, it's going to be citizens who are going to have to ask for it. Community members, if they're going to ask for it. And I think that, I'm going to throw this out there too, is that with things like the Democracy Institute coming in at the University of Virginia, I really think that we should be talking about what is the regional governance for this whole area. And is this is how we are now in 2021 the way it should look in 2050, 2045? Those are long-term conversations that if you want to have them, you got to have them now. Just like with running for office, and I don't think that we have the perfect mix. I have one opinion in that I think we need more city councilors. I truly believe that
so
that having even that idea of having it's been studied in 1981 and 2004. We have previous studies we could look at, because this idea of single shotting and everything, it's an interesting thing, but is it the best way to represent?
It's not healthy.
All three Democratic candidates for the Democratic nomination are from the same neighborhood.
Yeah, and I think that's an issue.
Did you hear that?
I've been a proponent of
The ward
system. I've talked about it on the show numerous times. I'm not a fan of even boards. I think odd is the thing. It forces the board to make a decision, or I guess in essence it did make a decision. The decision was no, right? Most people who watch the show know this, but if it's a split board, it goes on the no side, not the yes side.
You got to count to four.
You got to count that's this many, right?
So I got a question for you guys. So with the school board example, with the general, what did you go, the at-large spot? So how does that person get down there? Is it the most votes?
It's a separate
seat.
It's a separate seat.
Green County has an at-large supervisor. Dale, I can't come up with Dale's last name. Dale Herring is the at-large supervisor.
Got it.
And then that name will be on all the ballots.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you run at-large, it's a larger campaign and requires a fair amount of work, but that seat represents the entire county.
And that seat has the same amount of influence as the other seats.
That's exactly right. So the board now needs to appoint a chair, whereas the conversations we've had before about doing a strong mayor here in the city of Charlottesville, where it's basically an at-large vote that is everybody elects the mayor. But in my opinion, the city is large enough, broken up enough. It should have been in wards or districts or whatever terminology you wish to use.
Well, what's the opposition to that idea?
Great question.
Inertia.
The career politician, is that the opposition?
I think I'm not going to go too deep in this, but I think it's inertia. It's an idea that if you want to protect the status quo, you keep that.
And how many Republicans have been elected in the last 50 years?
How many have run?
Rob Schilling?
Well, there's
one independent.
You can go to CVillepedia and look. I think before that was Darden Tao was the last one.
53.
No, it was the 90s. There was a Robert E. Lee back. There was a Robert Lee back in the 60s. Sorry, I spent some time back in 1962 this week.
I'm trying to do this for you here, real quick, on the fly.
But to go back to that, for me, it would be constituent services. I think that the idea that you have a city that could potentially not have anybody representing huge swaths of it doesn't really do the people who live in those neighborhoods a service.
I think
because you want to be able to pick up the phone and say, all right, come on, I have this problem.
And this is not.
But you do have that in the county. If you live in Scottsville or whatever, you're going to call up whoever's in that seat or whatever. People who live in the city don't have that opportunity, and it causes confusion for the councilors because suddenly they're having to answer to the whole community for very specific issues. Because the first person you call is going to be your elected official. You're not going to pick up the phone and call Chip. Well, you might in the future, but we're not talking about the future of the city yet.
Right, but the thing is that this is not an indictment on anyone who is currently in office.
No.
We're talking about structural change.
You're talking improvement.
And looking at, as business folks, if you were running your business the same way you ran it in 1987.
You're screwed. You're out of business.
Literally, you have to adjust.
Faxes are coming back. So
Sean,
I'm going back.
That was a joke.
I'm going back to faxes.
Hold it. I might use that tomorrow.
Hold on.
This internet thing is,
It's just a fad.
That was the fax, man. Thank you.
I do remember a certain winery owner who told me the internet was a fad. It was a real thing.
Is that true?
It is true.
Okay. You're not going to say the name.
I will not.
Okay.
But
respect that.
Yeah.
But this is a real.
Say hi to Ray.
Who?
Ray Cadell.
Who?
Ray did a great job.
Oh, Ray. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying
Ray
Rick.
did
I
a
was trying
great
to figure
show
out
on
who
it.
Rick was.
And
he's my housemate.
I think Ray's points with regard to the manner in which they're going forth to have the fireworks and have it in a community way is a great thing. People don't really know all the stuff that businesses and business people do behind the scenes Ray got out in front of the cameras, but that's really not where he is generally. Generally, he's talking to people on the phone. He's making things happen. And as he said, we'll find a way to make it happen. It might not be as big as whatever, but we will make it happen. When you have that level of passion, and that is community-based passion, and you leverage the business community to support it, it's amazing the things this community can do.
Well said.
Amen to that. So, I want to catch some of these other counties. We caught Charlottesville a little bit. We caught Albemarle. Sounds like we talked a little bit about Greene on that. Do you guys want to touch Nelson County or Fluvanna? Any comments on those races?
Before we start there, I just want to give a shout out to Scottsville. I think Scottsville, the town of Scottsville, gets left out of all of these conversations.
Nancy Gill today at 12:30.
Yeah. And so but I think with Nancy, I spoke with Nancy last week. Oh, that's right, she's coming in today. We talked about this last week. I forgot about this. I forgot to bring the equipment.
Dude, and she's bringing beer from James River Brewery.
Look out, Sean may stay late.
I'm not staying late. No, I can't. Well, I've got a script I have to get out for
Totally
radio.
could if you want.
Hey, I got a wedding, and I'm sitting here. Come on now.
I'm going to introduce myself, but let's go back to Scottsville. It's like I think that you have a community with a younger, newer generation town administrator in Matt Lawless, who
he's good.
He's doing things to put the area. Now, Scottsville's growth is kind of limited by Route 20, which is never going to be expanded to 4 lanes, and you could argue one way or the other, but it's not going. That's so far down the list.
Did you see his tweet about the open container in the town of Scottsville?
I did not see that.
That was like a day and a half ago. Yeah. He said he's pursuing the beer garden concept in downtown Scottsville.
And where did that come from?
It didn't come from me. I mean, people have been talking about it for a while. I'm just trying to
I get it.
Yeah, keep it in the cycle.
But going back to the housing plan.
And you sent me that nice girl. Yeah.
But just to go back to the housing plan, I mean, he showed up at the public hearing at the Planning Commission and said, why isn't Scottsville included in this affordable housing conversation?
But of equal import, a year and a half ago, he showed up, one of 6 people to show up for the public input sessions on the housing plan.
Yeah.
It's Woody Allen. 80% of life is showing up.
There you go, buddy.
Yeah. But going back to the other areas, I mean, I do think, there's a question of identities. And I think, you've got Scottsville, which I think brings in Buckingham County into the equation. I mean, there's which I think, to me, that's in a different district, so I don't ever even think about it. But it's just on the other side of the James River.
Well, that's part of Scottsville's struggle, though. It only can grow because it hits that physical barrier of the James River.
So with Fluvanna and Louisa, you have Zion Crossroads, which I think is going to be really interesting. Another item at the Planning Commission in Fluvanna on Wednesday, I would think it was Wednesday, might have been Tuesday. It's all a blur. I told you I was back in 1962. I'm a little dizzy from the time travel. But they had a conversation.
The flux capacitor.
But they had a conversation about an undisclosed business use and a rezoning for it somewhere in Zion Crossroads. And so, I think I had read it as, well, I'm not going to say what, but interesting for that, they proffered out self-storage, which I think is a really interesting thing because I think there's been a lot of rezonings here where the rezoning happens, the next thing you know, there's a self-storage unit.
And why, Sean?
Because no one had the scrutiny to say that, and because there's a demand. Yeah, I'm going to say that. But at the same time,
this is fun, isn't it?
That's not what was said when it. That's not. But to be fair to the developers, that's the use that comes in. But is it the best use for the community?
Should the community get to choose the use?
Well, I think that there is a legislative process and there's a back and forth that at least gets them to weigh in. But
what about all the people that say we've got too many restaurants? We don't need another restaurant.
I mean, I think it's a free market.
Right. So the community gets to choose?
I would think the community should get to choose.
The community gets to choose by going to the place or not. No, voting with their dollars.
Yeah, I think the community should choose.
Right, but my question is, does the community get to choose at the zoning level whether or not a restaurant comes in?
Well, the planning commissions do, and in this case, in Fluvanna, the planning commission was, or whoever, I haven't dug too deep into it, was able to quickly say no self-storage units. So that came in there. It's the same thing. I'm trying to think of an example in Charlottesville or Albemarle about a use being proffered out. It happens a lot.
It does. It does. Car washes are often proffered out.
Why is that?
Because it's traffic issues and
the water
lights.
use.
Water use.
Yeah, the water use.
Yeah. But so,
Question for you on Scottsville.
Okay.
The tire plant. Charles Hurd and the tire plant.
From what I understand, there's all kinds of ideas and charrettes about what should happen, but I don't know who owns.
Dude,
who
we did an interview on Wednesday.
So Dr. Hurt still owns that?
Yeah, Dr. Hurt owns it. We did an interview on Wednesday with Eric LaFontaine of Ben Barbecue, and he said the rumor in downtown Scottsville is that there's tremendous amount of asbestos inside that.
Yeah.
So I know a little bit. I know a little bit about this. Actually, looked at it.
But from what I understand, there is a master plan for West Scottsville, which I think incorporates some of that. And I believe that they did give an easement for a park, down that area. So there's, I don't get down there.
So I have to jump. I have to absolutely jump in now. I just got a text from my oldest daughter that just said, "See, you didn't need to be there today."
Tell us about the power plant, or the tire plant.
Yeah.
What do you know about it?
I've had a couple of clients look at it over the years, and it's, it has a struggle getting past the what they call environmental phase 1. And when you start looking at this, and there's asbestos PCPs, it was a tire plant, and
right.
And
it was done. Everything was done above board at the time, but at the time we didn't know the environmental impacts that were going on.
Yeah.
And now we have the environmental legacy of that. We also see that with the avionics space up by the airport, which is another one that has these environmental concerns. The reality is that until there is pressure, that there is nothing else available.
Yeah.
And then those environmental concerns become economically feasible.
We're not there yet.
And we're not there yet, and I don't see us being there in 10 years.
No, I think that, I'll make a crystal ball, that project is probably a no-go for a very long time.
Dependent upon technology and environmental remediation technology.
So you're saying it's a teardown?
It's more than that. It's a teardown.
Think Love Canal.
Yeah, thank you. This is not a health. This is not. We're back. What year was that? I don't know. It was. We're out of 62 now, right?
Yeah.
We're in the 70s.
We're in the 70s. Yes.
Somewhere in that.
In New York.
In New York.
But there's other ones. There's the Acme.
I'll go back to my wedding stuff.
There's that one in Crozet that's it's not asbestos, but it's the environmental remediation at the Acme. What's it called? It's so there are all these old properties like that. But then again, we have other properties that were built in the 1980s that I'm sure someone's going to leap in and say which are at the end of their life right now.
Mm-hmm.
What happens with those properties that don't have asbestos?
And that's redevelopment opportunities.
You got CAC watching you here.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
The idea of redevelopment in some of the corridors. I will say that today is Friday, and I have not had one person ask me about Fashion Square Mall this week.
What's interesting?
Funny, I got that I got that question.
Zinger out of you right there.
No. I got asked that question last night from all people. Harry Tyson, my son-in-law, who's staying. I said, what are you guys ever going to do this? Because he forgot his tie or something.
He's in town, right?
Yeah, he's in town. Yeah.
We love Harry.
Love him to death.
Yeah.
He's a little busy watching the little ones while everybody's doing fingernails, and I'm getting texts about, see, you didn't need to be there today. But he forgot a tie, went into Belk. Literally the only person in the store.
Well,
literally,
I think
the only person in the whole mall.
It's really interesting. I was down in Lynchburg where my parents are this week, and my sister and my dad on Saturday or whatever day it was went to River Ridge Mall, which is it could be a tourist destination because Liberty University now. Allison Rabel, I am not saying the University of Virginia is going to buy Fashion Square Mall, so please stop the tweet now.
I can add some context. I had conversations with senior UVA people yesterday. That's not happening.
No, it's not happening, but the thing is that it is an opportunity for someone. It's going to take the right deal. But what's really interesting is, if you want to get really nerdy, follow Washington Prime Group stock, because right now, it's been going up. It's sort of like the AMC effect. I just looked at this yesterday.
I'm going to tag Allison.
So what they're doing over there is,
Crafty Panda.
Yeah, crafty panda, you crafty panda, you.
But it's, but that's going to be interesting. And let's go back to planning for a second. So I think that's kind of my shtick, right? There is a plan, which Neil will never like, for that area. The question is, it's only as good as whether or not this staff that we have right now remembers it. So when it does time to come rebuild
they will remember it because there are roads running through existing buildings.
Yeah. Now, but that's the thing. We're not going to shop like that, but we are going to continue to shop. I mean, I think that's. Who knows what will happen with fads and things. I personally never buy anything online, but I'm an outlier. But I want that retail experience.
You also use a fax.
Yeah, that's true.
What's that?
a fax.
He made a joke.
And I have a Rolodex. I don't have a Rolodex.
I was asking what a fax was.
Oh, got it.
But
wasn't sure if it was the hearing aids.
Yeah. So everybody wants to know why I'm quiet. I left my hearing aids home, so plus it's just watching these guys. You know what I was thinking as you two guys were going back and forth? Because
You know what I was thinking?
Go ahead, you first.
You two guys should host a show here
No,
and let us
no,
do
no.
all the work for you. You
No,
guys
it's-
literally would
it's-
just have to show up and talk into microphones and promote Free Enterprise Forum and drive new subscribers to the paywall.
Right.
Well, it's
But the bottom line is
throwing it out
the
there.
ideas.
One day.
The ideas that come forth from these master plans, from these citizen advisory committees that are appointed by elected officials. Elections matter.
well, let's talk about
But
that.
that
Do these
plan, just
advisory
real quick,
committees have any authority?
You got CAC watching you right now. I'm just letting you guys know.
well, of course they do. I mean, I think that's
They have authority.
They don't have authority. It's like the word advisory. What does the word advisory mean? The word advisory can have a lot of power.
It
They
means
have
insulation.
the power. They have the power to set the agenda. But
So-
of course, I would say this: if anybody from the Crozet community, but sometimes it becomes a telephone game. So about 6 weeks ago or so, at the Board of Supervisors had basically kind of said, well, we don't have to necessarily listen, and I'm paraphrasing, please forgive me. We don't necessarily have to listen to what they say. But what the CAC members heard was they were offended.
Yeah.
But yet the supervisors hadn't said anything that was really out of line. They were basically just saying, it's like,
well-
there's a bigger county
Well,
issues. And
They
again,
kind of marginalized them.
well, but that's the thing. It's an advisory. It's
Well, and-
like they have no actual power.
but didn't we just
it's
have
not
a
a
com-
town.
But you
Didn't
don't
we-
think they marginalized them a little bit?
They did marginalize
Yeah.
them a little bit, but then you look at these elections matter.
Mm-hmm.
You had a planning commissioner from Crozet
Uh-huh.
for 12 years who never once voted for a rezoning in Crozet. He voted for him in other parts of the county, never, and is that what you want your elected officials appointing?
Who appointed that planning commissioner? Is that Ann Malik?
He wasn't a planning commissioner for, it was 8 years.
It was 8 years,
Was
but
it Ann who appointed that planning commissioner?
Yeah, because he
Yes.
had run the same year. Tom Loach. We're talking about Tom Loach, and he had actually run that year,
I know that was
and then
Ann.
backed out. I think.
Let's
But-
back up for a second, gentlemen.
I can't.
Whoa, Nelly. To go back to this comment about advisory committees, it's really no different than the planning commission, right? You just mentioned earlier in the show that there was a vote that the planning commission approved,
recommended approval.
recommended
The planning
approval.
commission has more influence than the CAC.
And it's also,
But
the planning
it's-
commission's in the state code. The community
Correct.
advisory committees are not.
Right.
I think that's where the conversation was at the board level, and there was, everything's about setting expectations and communication and all that stuff. But let me get this out real quick. I've been patiently sitting here quiet, doing wedding texts and answering. Yeah, I need to go.
You're doing a great job.
I am participating just so I don't get my ass chewed out when I get home any later. I can't add any intellect to the conversation.
That's not true.
To the conversation.
I don't like when you say that.
Yeah, well, with these two guys, I actually can say that. The reality of it is I was sitting here watching you two guys very quietly, and you guys are really close friends, but you don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything. And what you guys are listening to or watching right now is what really needs to go on in our world.
You know what that's called? Democracy.
What's called respect.
Yeah.
And they respect each other. They don't necessarily agree with
How
it.
it's supposed to be.
It's how it's supposed to
Yeah.
be. And to tie this back to election matters, this is what we need to see on our elected bodies' boards. People get along well, they respect each other, they communicate well, but they don't necessarily agree. They don't offend one another, right? And,
it's
I like
always-
to think you two guys don't offend one another.
One of my favorite moments in local government history, and Sean was there for
Actually,
this.
I'm going to write this down and see if I have the right answer. You keep talking.
Okay. My favorite moments was
Click and clack, that's it. Click and clack that's happening.
We're at the Board of Supervisors, and Ken Boyd and Brad Sheffield. Brad Sheffield gives Ken
that's
Boyd a Groundhog Day because Ken would continue to say, "We've talked about this before. Why are we talking about it again? It's like Groundhog Day." And on his retirement, Brad Sheffield gave him a stuffed animal groundhog, and I thought it was just perfect. They didn't agree politically. They did get along very well in interpersonal relationships.
I got one of the names right. I thought he was going to go with Boyd and Dennis Rooker, but I got one of them
Oh,
right.
yeah, Dennis Ricard, that is a name from the past.
Well, they
That's
used
from the
to-
past, Dennis Rooker.
But see, that's the thing. There was diversity. Well, there is a lot. I mean, there's one particular gentleman who always speaks to the Board of Supervisors who goes in and says, you 6 Democrats are all the same. And that's not even close to true.
No.
There are 6 different individuals with different perspectives, different let's get that word back in there, constituencies. Because, you ask about the weight of these community advisory committees, they represent people who vote. And in a lot of cases, that is the first. It's what I like about those is it's a chance for me as a reporter to get a first look at things before they go to the Planning Commission. So that means that these proposals get a. I'm going to go back to a phrase we used to use a lot in the 2000s. The first bite at the apple. I hate that phrase, but it works, right? Because that implies that multiple people are eating the same apple. Gross. We just went through COVID. None of that.
But your point with regard to Democrats, some of the best arguments and philosophical discussions that Sean and I have sat through were 2 Democrats, Dennis Rooker and Mr. Slutsky.
Oh, yeah.
Those 2 had very different views of the world, both from the Democratic side, but they were incredible discussions.
Mm-hmm. And I think right now, like in the city, let's just say, I think that there are great. And I want more of this. I want on our elected bodies there to be conversations and differences of opinion. Lloyd Snook and Nakia Walker have great conversations that sometimes they spill over into the Facebook world where I don't look anymore because I'm more interested in what's happening on the dais.
So entertaining.
On the virtual dais. Because to me, those differences of opinion are really interesting. And I think that these should be discussions. They shouldn't be monolithic decisions that are made. To Gary Grant's point, and I think that Gary Grant's the guy who keeps going up, and he says he
used to work for INA, right?
Yeah,
reporter, yeah.
But he said he goes after B. Lepisto Kirtley a lot for a comment that she made, which was probably an ill-advised comment, where she says, by the time it gets to the board, we've already made up our minds. That was a rookie mistake on her part, because if you think that should not be the case.
Yeah. So this whole show, I've been thinking about how do we wrap a bow around, how do we define the term elections matter? To me, right, everything is personal. To me, how elections matters to get back to what you 2 guys are doing right now. You could not necessarily agree on everything, but we're having a conversation. We're having a very public debate about something on this end of it. That's why elections matters. And I'll probably say something that'll get me in a little bit of trouble here. This one-shotting does not get us there.
Single-shotting, yeah.
But local elections matter more than statewide or federal.
No doubt.
These are the people that are making the decisions that are impacting your children, impacting your grandchildren, and impacting your lives.
But to your point, and I don't always, I often do not agree with her policy. But to her point, Mayor Walker, and pushing the single-shotting, it's not wrong. It's within the rules.
No.
Yeah.
This is an emotional thing. It's from a tactical perspective, it's genius.
Exactly right.
Absolute genius. I mean, there's, to be honest with you, that very few things that I've ever had a personal one-on-one conversation with her doesn't, I've always walked away going, okay, that makes sense. She's a pretty articulate woman when you have an opportunity to talk to her one-on-one. Not pretty, she is articulate woman on that stuff. I just think we need to get back to what we're witnessing right now on this conversation, and one-shotting kind of dilutes that a little bit. It's just my personal opinion.
I agree 100%.
But I think that I think that we've talked about ranked choice voting. We talked about the potential for reforming, and this is going to have to come from me, because remember, I'm not in the business of telling people what they should think. I'm a reporter. That's something that I briefly got away from, and it was miserable for me. I want the rest of you guys to have these conversations, but I do want it to be in such a way that I would have liked it if more Democrats had run this time around. I'm actually very surprised that we only had five. You could argue it one different ways, but I would like to see. I think that we're kind of in a point.
Would you include Yaz in there? And then she didn't get the signatures? And then that's what, okay.
But I'm saying it's where are the but let's just throw this out there. Where are the planning commissioners who are raising up? I mean, like I'm just suggesting, because Lloyd Snook was a planning commissioner, what is the farm team for this sort of thing? So going back to the community advisory committees, not to say this should happen, but those should be sort of the first place. If you have interest in running for office, be on one of these.
Can I offer what happened, what I went through? And I applied for 4 boards and commissions at Albemarle County through the website, through the county website. They give you a 2-sentence confirmation that they received your application, and then the follow-up communication is nothing.
Yeah.
You don't hear about anything for like 40, 45 days. I picked up the phone and called Mr. Morris in the...
Travis.
Travis Morris. In
Deputy clerk.
And he's like, we will follow up with you soon. Thank you for the phone call. If I had not have done that, I mean, and he says it's rare that someone calls them and follows up. So I guess where I'm going with this, and then I'm going to get out of the way because you guys are a hell of a lot smarter than me, is like, why should it take 45 to 60 days for you to hear anything? I mean, it's a demoralizing aspect. And I'm pursuing this because you know I'm running for the board and I want to learn more. But if the average Joe went through this, they just quit.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do it.
I think in some, and I'm not defending them, except was that during the COVID era?
Oh no, it was post-COVID, so it was like, I mean, are we
Pre, you
post-COVID
mean?
No, it was like now.
Yeah.
So
Recently.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
45
think.
days ago.
I'm sort of tuned out on the county, which is not a good place to be, but the city has been much more interesting and compelling at this time, which is not a good thing because there's a lot going on in the county, in Albemarle County. So I'm not sure of that, but for the planning commission, it's also
a frustrating process.
It's a frustrating process,
Yes,
and there are numerous openings.
Right.
And we need people to serve in those places.
I literally sent an email to Supervisor Galloway, to Mr. Richardson, to Travis, and to Supervisor Price about this. The reason we have so many openings is because this process for applying is like trying to do something in a phone booth.
Yeah.
So-
Does that make sense?
Well, I think, again, not defending it, but I'm trying to think, how do we do better, or how do they do better?
Communicate.
I think in some cases, there's an election, but there's not anyone running. But generally, let's say it was the planning commission, you're not going to get appointed to the planning commission until just after an election. Because of that.
The ones I did was not planning commission.
right.
It was the ones that had vacant openings.
Which ones, though? I'm just curious.
This
Go
is
ahead,
Keith's
sorry.
show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, Keith. Go ahead.
just hey guys.
Keith, you are appointed, Keith.
Well, I am.
He's on too many boards already.
Well, and that's where I wanted to jump in. I know a little bit about this. I've been doing it since 1987, and on the system that you're describing right now, Jerry's been in existence as long as I've been doing it since 1987. And the reason, unfortunately, if you want it, you've got to go for it.
Dude, I pretty much have to go in person and do it.
I have nothing but the love for you.
Yeah, same.
You're just going to have to corner an
Yeah.
elected official. I mean, you're just going to have to do it, and show your passion, and you will get in there. That doesn't make it right? It should be more similar, but it does.
We're volunteering, not getting compensated, volunteering our time, and it's brutal to do it.
Yeah, Mrs. Smith will add those maths up for you on how much time
Your
I have.
hours.
My hours,
Yeah.
yeah. But you gotta have to want it, and that's where this falls apart.
Frankly, your influence in how you engage civically with the community is one of the reasons I want to do it, because I see how much you care.
Yeah.
And I've spent 2 years and change across from you. How many hours a week?
Enough.
Oh, right? And
No.
honestly, I'm like, this guy's doing it and he's making a difference. I want to do it.
Well, I don't know. I'd like to think I'm making a
You
difference,
are.
but yeah, it's all about relationships, and that's what they want. They want relationships, and they want to establish relationships. And I'll tell you, it comes from the same thing. Just talk about what they want to do is right, wrong, or indifferent. They want to trust you. And
I'll just put in a plug real quick for a second. I believe that I don't know when the close. I'm not going to look it up on the phone real quick, but there is an open vacancy on the Charlottesville Planning Commission. I don't know if they're still taking applications, but they need to fill that
Is
vacancy
that
soon.
Stolzenberg's spot?
No, it's Heaton, Gary Heaton.
Okay.
Who,
Rory's is coming up, right?
I'm
Soon?
not sure, to
I
be
think
honest.
it comes after the election.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of strange changes, I think, because Corey, well, and all that.
And
But
the other thing to
Here
note,
are all the open spots. Travis sent me this list. Look at
Hold on,
all
go
these.
slower. Go slower.
but the reality is there is a process that has to be followed for these, because they're actually nominated by the entire board.
That's exactly right.
And so that has to get onto an agenda. They only consider those appointments in one of two meetings a month.
Yep.
And if you aren't in the first meeting, you've bumped another 2 weeks.
Right.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
But
And it's volunteering.
But I will tell you this, and this is critically important. Government moves slowly,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not a bad thing.
Sometimes. I mean,
You're frustrated.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes when we're not going to go back to the bypass. Sometimes it moves fast and it gets its
Gets its
knees
tips over
cut
the
off.
over the
But
over the
Neil,
skis.
this is why all these spots are open, because people are just throwing in the towel and saying, to heck with this. I mean, look at all these open spots.
There
He
are-
literally sent me this, Travis did.
It's available online at albemarle.org.
All right.
There are great opportunities for people
But every
to volunteer.
jurisdiction has
Every
this.
All right,
jurisdiction
you
has
piqued
this.
my interest. I'll look into this.
I know, and I'll throw this to you here. I pointed out to them, literally pointed out to them, that they were marketing spots on these boards and commissions as vacant, but they were not vacant. So they hadn't updated the website.
No, they
This is, well, it's interesting. You're
You want
looking
me
at
to forward you this?
No, you're looking actually at a static list. There actually is a more dynamic
list
On the
roster.
website.
Yeah, on
Look,
the roster.
That's what I went through.
Yeah, but send me that and we'll talk, because I
this
do
is the
think
most
that.
up-to-date
yeah.
one.
and some of them say vacant or about to be vacant, and you have someone who is willing to be reappointed, but they have to advertise it per state code.
That's exactly right.
That it is vacant.
That's exactly
because
right.
they have to have candidates. If they have multiple candidates, they have to choose.
That's
So there's a lot of weeds in here to making it all work. And I would completely agree with you. Government is incredibly bureaucratic and slow. And thank goodness, because if you let government go too fast, they're really going to get ahead of themselves.
But at the same time, and this isn't necessarily an end run around it, but maybe it is. There are open slots at every single Board of Supervisors meetings where anybody can speak about any topic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure how that works, but when it goes back into public, I would say wait till then, because that is the time when me as a reporter and other reporters, we're listening for interesting new things, and that's a place where people can show up. That's what advocacy groups do.
Let's pivot a little bit.
Oh, like who? And but that's why you'll never see me up there anymore. I did it for a brief time because I don't know what you're talking about.
I ought to get him to do the dad speech.
Yeah, PEC.
So let's pivot a little bit on this stuff. We've just looked at all the jurisdictions. It seems like only one is a competitive race, right?
No, there's competitive races in
Where
Nelson.
am I missing the
Louisa,
competitive?
Nelson,
and
Green, Nelson, Green, and Charlottesville. So 3 localities with competitive races.
God, Fluvanna's not.
And
Albemarle's not.
Albemarle's not.
Yeah, Fluvanna doesn't have.
What about
one?
Louisa? We
I mean,
haven't
the most
talked about
frustrating
Louisa.
Louisa does have-
Albemarle that I-
Louisa has one.
Yeah, there's
has one.
Someone running against Fitz, isn't it?
I think there's actually
Someone's running
two.
against Fitzgerald Barnes?
I think there's
Yeah.
2, and I can't bring it up right now, but
Well, my memory
hold
seems-
on.
I could
Let's
The
be-
see.
most frustrating
I did
one for
upload
me
this to
was the Samuel Miller
Cvillepedia.
district, where Supervisor Palmer picked her replacement.
Well, that happens.
Well, we had a little bit of that happen in
Picked her
Fluvanna.
replacement, and he has no opposition.
Yeah.
Well-
that is not Supervisor Palmer or the candidate's fault.
Yeah.
No, I'm not blaming that.
The
I'm blaming the system.
absolute best opportunity in any political sector is when a person retires. When that vacancy happens, that is the best opportunity to change parties, regardless of party, because there's no incumbency. That being said, once you get past 2 elections, it's very difficult to unseat anybody.
That's at local election level.
Breaking news from Louisa County. In the Green Springs district, incumbent Mr. Babiak is facing challenger Rachel Jones. In the Patrick Henry district, Fitzgerald Barnes faces William Woody Jr. Dwayne Adams is unopposed in the Middle district, and Tommy Barlow is unopposed in the Mountain Road district. Now, to most people in Charlottesville, this isn't necessarily going to be interesting, or you might think, well, why should I
it
care?
impacts that.
But if you live in the village of Rivanna and you're complaining about traffic on 250, you're not going to stop it, because if they're not built now, tomorrow, they're going to Zion Crossroads.
It all matters, Sean. It all matters. All these. That's the reason I'm so passionate about these regional bodies that I sit on. All these counties and all in the city all intersect with one another. What happens in Louisa County doesn't impact Charlottesville. Charlottesville maybe impacts some of the other jurisdictions a little bit more than
Well, he just made a perfect example about the village of Rivanna and the development that's happening in Louisa. Everyone's just going to come down that corridor with their cars. So even if Breezy Hill doesn't go full capacity, the cars that he's talking about from Louisa will still have the same impact with Breezy Hill.
Well, where have you been going lately to eat
Well, well-hung restaurant.
Well-hung vineyard.
That's where I've been going.
In Gordonsville.
So Gordonsville,
Good
it's great.
pivot. Good
Yeah.
pivot.
But there's also an industrial. I mean, so Louisa is getting quite aggressive about economic development. The Shannon Hill Regional Business Park there. I mean, in 10 years, they could land something really big. There's a lot of warehousing and distribution because all the online shopping that people are doing, which is why Fashion Square Mall is out of business, or look, I'm moving forward, you need distribution centers for that. Where are they going to go?
Right.
They're going to go to places that are cheaper, and some of those are going to be places like Louisa. People are going to work there. How are they going to get there?
And a shout out to Louisa for being very aggressive in their economic development.
Yeah.
And
Very
to
much
my
so.
former field reporter, Brian Rothamel, who's now the economic development director in
Fluvanna.
Fluvanna.
Yeah, he's
that
great.
Got themselves a tractor supply.
Yeah.
I mean, it's these little things that make
Yeah.
a difference. They really, really do.
Well, and a little bit under the radar, and you know about this, Fluvanna and Louisa County are working together for a joint plan.
Yeah.
So you're now starting to see things that we've been preaching in this room for decades. You're now starting to see this. You're starting to see, or maybe this too, or whatever, starting to see these working together, and they're coming to a joint plan. This water thing in Louisa and Fluvanna has been a bit of a fiasco for decades. It's finally getting there. Hopefully they'll get water to the Zions Crossroads in the next 12 to 24 months, like 400,000 gallons of it. But you're starting to see that. And the commission, the Planning District Commission, is a big part of this, where we're putting these bodies together or these entities together to do that. But you're starting to see these jurisdictions are starting to get it and starting to work together in a team.
And I would take a look at the sales tax data that we reported at Free Enterprise Forum, and you can see how the year-over-year sales tax data has compared. It is
24%
fascinating.
uptick year over year, Greene County. I learned that from him.
How much of that is COVID? Because wasn't there the internet sales tax ruling or something?
It was, but that actually is calculated in the last years. But yes, that's very much true. The year over year is about 9% for 3 of the localities, and it's much greater in the outlying localities. I think it reflects, remember, this is
density.
It's a trailing indicator. It represents where houses are and where people are.
Right.
They're not coming into town, although I'm seeing traffic patterns change.
Right.
And more people are coming into town to go to work now than they have been.
Right.
How much
So you're
more,
saying this COVID thing is turning around a little
the
bit?
question will be when we take a look at the second quarter stats.
You think the number's going to go down?
I
agree.
firmly believe that the year over year will go down slightly.
Because people are shopping in Charlottesville and Albemarle.
People are coming to Charlottesville
Right.
now. They were always shopping. Where they're shopping is the question.
I think he's right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, and I'm looking at your chart, and I'm glad you brought this up here, your infographic, Free Enterprise Forum, guys. Albemarle.
Content slinger.
Albemarle, hashtag content slinger. Albemarle and Charlottesville's sales tax revenue numbers were still good.
They're
considering, still up, yeah. But what I extrapolated from this, Greene, Louisa, Waynesboro, and Augusta are starting to eat some of Albemarle and Charlottesville's lunch, is what I extrapolated from this. There's more competition than ever.
Well, and that's because there is more you talk about a Tractor Supply in
Yep.
Fluvanna.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't have to go
Exactly.
into Albemarle
Right.
to get something.
Here's a prime example of my gas, got a house full of people, my gas grill kind of crapped out on me. I literally drove to Tractor Supply, put it in the back of my pickup truck, and drove it home.
There you go.
Literally, and I would have
And 6 months ago, you couldn't have done that.
Where would you have done it?
1987, I had to drive to Charlottesville to buy milk.
There you go.
Right? Literally had to drive to Charlottesville to buy milk, 1987.
Jerry was in grammar school.
Elementary school, actually. Elementary school.
You went there. I
Grammar
wasn't
school,
going
elementary
there.
School? It is? Okay, gotcha. I was.
I was obsessed with fax machines.
You still are obsessed. We're going to have a little therapy conversation
I've
about
never heard the word fax machine so much than this show right now.
I remember the first time I saw one. My dad had a business in our basement and successfully launched it into something else. The first time I saw a fax machine, I thought it was magic. It was just crazy. It was just like, this is coming over.
Oh, and it was like the thermo paper, right? That rolled
yeah, it
up.
was like between that, I think
How much
how
did that
far we've
cost?
come.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
You were paying long distance. So
Yeah.
it's so crazy to think about how things
Well,
have
Well,
changed.
and my father-in-law would complain because he was in real estate, and the real estate guy across the street would fax him something. He's like, "Get off your
Well,
back."
did you hear what Ray said yesterday? When he first
I was a
got
little
into
busy
real
with
estate?
wedding crap.
You were. when he got into real estate, he literally had to go to it wasn't Kinko's. It was like a printing store to get flyers printed for his listings, and he would hand out the flyers.
Yeah, sure.
Pre-full MLS. Now, I rent space in the car office, and I do remember Ray being one of the last ones to go and pick up the book.
Right?
Absolutely. And that was just, it was crazy, and it was a very different time. And I appreciated Ray's comments about the things that are lost with this, but there's been huge gains as well.
But that's the way any change goes, right? There's positive.
Ray misses the days of the book, and Ray is watching right now.
Yeah.
He misses the days of the book.
Yeah, I can't read that well, so I have to look at pictures
Well,
and
I'll
stuff
tell you
like
what,
that.
you guys had a lot more control with that book.
You did, but we still. Oh, you hit the camera.
That was the cutoff line. Time to go, Common Bride.
There was one freaking rule, Neil, that you needed.
You had one thing.
It's a 10-second delay. Oh, there it was. I just saw it on the screen right there. The
10-second delay. That's good Lord. So look, guys.
We go 3 more minutes, and this is the longest real talk.
Okay,
of all
well,
time.
we'll go.
Well, the most important question is, can we crash the wedding?
Ooh.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, cool, great.
Your wife. And
Hello,
your
everybody.
family are
See you tomorrow.
listening. Do not say yes.
No, but you guys
I'm
can
not
come
coming.
on Sunday at Brazo. We're giving out tacos, so come and see us.
You
Bring
just
your
said
family.
that.
Yeah, whatever. I
I'm
don't
not
really
going
care.
to the wedding.
I gave
No,
up.
I'm talking about the viewers.
The viewers.
That's right. We do have cameras, guys, and listeners. Yeah, I gave up my address a couple of times. What the hell?
Goodness.
Right?
Yeah, you did. I wouldn't do that anymore.
So
I just got a Bill Nitchman, property owner. What do you think he is implying using the word? Wow, it's over the city land use map heating up argument. Dude, this is the talk of the town, dude.
yeah.
Well, it's a good conversation. I think it's, and I'm a homeowner, and if I look at what's happening, and, and I think it's a great conversation to have. It's what the map ends up. But remember, you have to go back to other it's not like this is the first time this has happened.
But this engagement is great.
There you
great.
go.
But informed engagement is great.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the website, CVillePlansTogether.com. Go to Sean's website. Go to my website. Do not go to Nextdoor. That is not where real information is.
Yeah. And I would even, the email that Jerry just sent is from Charlottesville Tomorrow. That's the place I worked for years. Go there. Look at what they have to say.
So-
Read the daily progress. Did I do an article for CVille Weekly?
Informed
I think I did.
decisions.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So,
Frankly, it's some of the best content in there.
Literally,
Genuinely.
I don't know about that.
Please do
but,
more.
do they still have comics? Because that's the.
Do you
Their
draw?
office is for lease. Did you see that?
Actually, I want my old office back at Charlottesville
So
Tomorrow.
are they not in there anymore, Sean?
No, Charlottesville Tomorrow?
No, CVille Weekly.
I don't want to speculate on air.
Because there's a for lease sign in the window.
I know they've been subleasing. They've been subleasing space inside that office, so I don't think they're going to leave there. But they have a really big office space there,
Right.
and they have been subleasing, which I think is okay to say. If not,
You said it.
I guess I don't work for them
So,
anymore.
so guys, get involved, get involved, get involved,
Get informed and get involved.
Well, to me, that implies the same thing, but yeah.
And keep an open mind. I think the most important thing is that a lot of what's happened is people are very concerned, and there's a lot of fear. But I think that, keeping an open mind, I'm reading a new book. Actually, should I say this? Should I out myself as a Star Wars nerd?
Oh, please do, because
I
I
think I've
haven't.
already
I
done.
think we already had an idea you like Star Wars.
I really
Sean.
like the High Republic series because it goes back 400 years in
really?
the past and really talks about the origins of the Jedi and what they can. Someone cut me off, please.
Please.
Yeah, we're done. I'm using
Off
executive.
cut you shall be.
I'm using executive producer authority. You are now cut off. Sir.
All right, cool.
But
good
get
book.
involved, get informed. Look, we just watched 2 gentlemen that are close friends that
You guys
kind
are
of
great
looking at different opinions from different subjects.
I'm going to straight up say this. This might be the best show we've ever done of any show in the history of
You said that last time.
No. Don't you think this was better than the last time?
I don't.
It would, are you,
You know-
guys not
you know-
having so
you know
much
why
fun?
it's-
Isn't
you
this
know why
fun?
it's better?
All I know is I've been staring at this camera because you told me to.
You're doing it
and I haven't broken. I'm not breaking.
Let me kick
Don't kick the
it.
cameras. Don't kick the cameras. Please don't kick the cameras. He's made the best eye contact of all 4 of us. with the cameras.
Yeah, it's like really weird because I'm trying to talk to the dude and he
But
won't
you
look
told
at
me
me.
to look at the camera.
Well, you're supposed to.
So you know why I think this was so much better? It's because we're
in person.
We're in
Yeah.
person and we're
Closer.
actually looking at each other eye to eye. But again, get involved. I was thinking as you were speaking, Jerry. One of the reasons why my volaholic problem is I seek out people with different thoughts and opinions than myself to get educated.
Me too.
To get educated, maybe Sean and I may not agree on certain things.
Whole concept
This is what we built Real Talk around.
Yeah.
So what, seek out somebody who has a different opinion than you and ask them why they feel that way. Right? Neil, why do you feel this? Why do you feel that? I honestly want to know because maybe I'm wrong, right? But when you start grouping into these little, I was talking to somebody the other day. It seems like, I got kicked out of high school, so I don't really know too much about high school, but like these high school cliques, right? This clique is here, this clique is there, this clique is here, right? And go out and seek other cliques and try to get educated on that end of it. And I've been fortunate. I've traveled the world for the United States Marine Corps, got to see other cultures, got to see how other people live, and that's how I've always sought out, okay, so why do you think this? So let's not put ourselves into our little boxes. Let's not put ourselves in our little cliques and seek out other opinions, except...
Aren't we all in little boxes now?
We are Hollywood Squares is what he's talking about.
Sean.
I completely agree.
Sean, I was actually trying to be.
For you, Sean? I'm going to do this for Sean right here. Hold on 1 second. This is
Just
for
take
Sean.
me off. Get rid of me.
No, I'm not kicking you off. Wait for it. Wait for it. There we go, Sean.
Look at it. See, look how serious I am.
Those bags into the eye.
Oh, stop, Sean.
I'll be appreciative of that comment, and I'll say that's exactly what the CAC should be and are not.
Well, and
we got to cut this off.
You need to get the website back up. I just messed
but-
you up. I'm sorry, Judah. Can you get the big screen back up? I apologize. my
Look,
friend.
Neil, to be clear, I
Why do
wasn't
I do
directing to any one group or any one party. It doesn't really matter, right? Seek out another opinion and try to learn
Understood.
another opinion.
And Han shot first.
That's a Star Wars.
I got it. So are we over?
All right. Yeah, you just set the record.
Really? Cool.
Yeah, you set
Are we
the
done?
record. This is outside of
Did
the.
we do an Irishman?
Outside of the telethon.
Well, the
That doesn't
telethon,
count.
the telethon doesn't count.
But this is the longest one.
So I think.
That's why Judah's giving you the fungal.
Fungal.
Sorry, Judah. Sorry, Judah.
So we're gonna. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to talk for another couple of seconds so we can get to 12 o'clock, so we can really set the record here. Please.
You're getting some tacos on Sunday.
Liza is getting tacos. We're going to do round tables, please. I'm going to roll out the Rolodex and try to get these jurisdictions one-on-one in here, start talking about it. The folks that are watching, particularly these uncontested races, this hopefully will be an opportunity for folks to ask questions of them. I know we're going to ask questions in this team.
I think your roundtable concept, too, is going to help with, the younger demographic
Sure.
voter that maybe is not picking up the newspaper
Sure.
to learn about the candidates, but is obsessed on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and Snapchat and all that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And I had a separate topic to talk about today, which last month we punted. We're going to punt this month, and maybe next month that might be our kickoff, which is, the 20-ton elephant. UVA is tipping its toe in affordable housing, and
I'm not to get Sean started.
That'll be a great discussion.
No, I would just say it's like follow my content at Charlottesville Community Engagement.
Yeah.
I am trying to, this week, Ivy Gardens, I do want to put this out there. There was a plan talked about at the Building and Grounds Committee, and there's two significant things here. 440 units now. The idea is to eventually have it built out to about 700. And President Jim Ryan said at that it is a major priority for the city, for the university to build housing for second-year students, which might make a big difference.
So we're gonna punt this in next month, because I actually bumped into President Ryan yesterday and had a 45-minute conversation with him. So
That's what happens when you bump into
second year
Keith.
staying on grounds.
He knows that all too well.
That's an internal political decision that they're going to have to make, but they've heard loud and clear from the unit.
That would help.
Well, they've heard loud and clear that they need to provide more on-grounds housing.
So I literally was
So, yeah.
asked that question
So
by leadership yesterday. Do I think this is going to help relieve the housing market?
Of course.
I'm not so sure about
I'm not
that.
so sure either.
How so?
Increasing supply will not hurt the housing market.
Exactly.
That I'll
it
go
won't,
with.
It won't
Yeah.
hurt it, but the question was earmarked not housing supply. It was earmarked specifically, will it help affordable housing?
Yes.
And I don't think it will.
How?
If you increase supply,
Yeah.
and reduce demand because you're forcing second years to stay on grounds.
Was that 3,000 students to stay on
impact
grounds?
the demand curve.
Yes.
Viewers, I'm sorry. I thought we were done.
And while I'm at it,
I agree 100% with you.
I do not like Jar Jar Binks.
Wait,
Sorry?
Jar Jar Binks?
Star Wars.
Oh, okay, great.
So did you guys watch my Star Wars? I tried to do a couple of Star Wars references, May 4th.
Uh-huh. Oh, no? Oh, I would have watched that.
Dude, now
I watched it. It did fall flat.
it fell flat, man. It was horrible.
Don't we have a burp?
It was horrible. It was a.
Yeah.
All righty, we made it. 12 o'clock.
We gotta
Thanks,
go.
everybody.
You might see Nancy
we
Gill
done?
here.
Yeah, I need to go eat some food.
Okay.
Oh.
This is Real Talk.
yeah.
Thank you for joining us. It's 12 o'clock. We went 90 minutes. Judah's giving us the bird over there. Judah, we apologize. This was so much freaking fun. It was so much fun. You guys have a good afternoon and a happy wedding to this man's
Thank you.
daughter.
Hooray. Yeah,
Thank
yes, whatever you say. I don't remember.
Happy dad.
Twice divorced.
Come to Brazos on Sunday. We'll introduce you and we'll have fun.
You guys have a good afternoon. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
It was so fun.
Oh, that was good. That was good fun.
So fun. I love you guys.
That's good stuff.
I'm in trouble.
For what would I do?
I can't hear you.